Hopefully by now I've impressed upon you the significance of games in general and video games in particular, but it's still worth talking about the concept that many people have in their head when they hear about something like gamification, which is the assumption that games are somehow trivial, insignificant, not serious, not worthy of thought when we're talking about business or we're talking about major, important, serious kinds of objectives. So let me confront that in several ways before we leave the topic of games. The first is to point out the connection between video games and gamification as well to many of the core trends in both the technology world as well as business in general. So when we talk about e-business and e-commerce, many of the important developments are things like analytics, getting dashboards, using big data to pull together very, very rich, detailed data sets about individual users and their activities online. That's also a core element of games. If you think about social game companies like Zynga, they are constantly doing A/B testing to try out different things, constantly collecting data on every interaction that their users have with the game and shaping the experience based on that data. And in many ways, that is the future of video games and also a very important element of effective gamification, because gamification relies as well on that data. People interacting with the systems generate very rich data sets which can be mined to understand how to make the gamified system more effective. Cloud. So a big trend right now is the growth of massive data centers that do processing and storage centrally as opposed to on local computers, and therefore can take advantage of efficiencies and massive scale processing power. Cloud is also a huge development in the games world. As we move from games downloaded and put in a box and put on a CD or DVD in someone's computer to games delivered across the network, increasingly games become cloud-like. And gamification, like any web-based system, can be delivered using this same infrastructure. And finally, mobile. I already talked about mobile games like Angry Birds, huge growth rate, huge rate of development in sophistication with the growth of smartphones and tablets. The games industry is going towards mobile just like everything else. The second one here is social. As I've talked about, games are powerfully social, and video games are also powerfully social, and all of the techniques of using social networks, leveraging the social graph, and getting insights about people and making experiences richer and more valuable using those social tools, all of that is also deeply embedded in the video games industry today and the direction that the video games industry is going, and similarly something to be taken advantage of in gamification. So those are two digital building blocks for gamification. Two non-digital building blocks. The first is loyalty programs, things like frequent flyer miles or credit card reward programs. Massive industry. 2 billion reward program memberships in the US alone, roughly $50 billion of rewards outstanding. Huge numbers. Now, part of the reason that those loyalty programs are valuable is all those rewards don't get redeemed. But clearly there is something going on here when virtually every travel company and virtually every financial services credit card type company uses some sort of rewards program in their business. As we'll talk about, these loyalty programs don't go far enough in some of the ways that gamification can. They don't leverage fun and progression and these game dynamics nearly to the full extent. And they also have all sorts of problems in terms of being manipulative and not necessarily serving the user's interest. But they provide some foundation for understanding how game mechanics, things like points and levels and representations of achievement like badges, have value and can be used in a business context. And similarly, if you look at many of the important theories in management in areas like organizational behavior and work design, as well as key theories in marketing about customer segmentation and customer analytics, all of them fit very neatly into the games industry today, but in particular into gamification. So we're not talking about things here that are divorced from what you might learn about in a digital marketing course or in a digital strategy course. We're talking about things that are very much in line of all of those kinds of developments. Second piece here is that games, video games I mean, and the real world are coming closer together. On the one hand, games are becoming increasingly real by moving the real world into the game. So I talked about serious games, simulations. This that you see on the screen here is one called America's Army. It's a first-person shooter, realistic 3D game for being a soldier in the U.S. Army, and it is produced by the U.S. Army. Why? Recruiting. Getting people aware of what being in the Army entails, encouraging people to get familiar with and get excited about the process of being in the Army, and to some extent weeding out people who are not right for the Army because they have a misunderstanding about the skills and the character traits that it requires. Most successful recruiting tool in the Army's history, they say. And it's a video game. So this and many other things are about taking the real world and putting it into games. The reverse is also happening. Games are coming to the real world. I've already alluded to a variety of examples. One of them has to do with these virtual goods. So you'll recall I talked about the multi-billion-dollar industry around virtual goods. But there's also a gray market industry that's called gold farming. People playing games like World of Warcraft, where the player has to generate gold and use the gold to buy things, and the gold can be traded with other players on an auction house or something like that. It turns out that if you run a company in, say, China, where wages are much lower than the US, you can employ a bunch of people to play World of Warcraft 8, 10, 12 hours a day, acquire gold, and then take the gold that they've collected and the valuable assets in the game, turn them around and sell them through a group of middlemen to people in the West, and they will pay real money for that gold. And the real money they will pay will be more than at the other end of the chain what you have to pay the people playing the game to accumulate the gold. Estimates are that there are at least 100,000, perhaps as many as 400,000 people in China who make their living playing games like World of Warcraft as gold farmers. Again, typically working for these intermediary companies. It's a multi-billion-dollar gray market industry. That's an example of something that comes out of games. The gold isn't real. It's totally virtual, and yet it has real value to people. Up here, I put a screenshot of the cover of a book called Play Money by my friend Julian DeBell. If you're interested in gold farming and virtual goods, Julian has been covering this for years, and the book is about his own experiences trading virtual assets for real money. The final piece here is that when we ask, are games real or do they matter in the real world, it's actually a false question. Because if you go out and look at many phenomena in the real world through the lens of gamification, turns out they're already game-like. So what is the monthly sales competition between a sales force? First prize is a car, second prize is steak knives, third prize is a pink slip, or something like that. What is that but a challenge? A competitive challenge. If you get the most sales in this month, you get a prize. What is a frequent flyer program? A loyalty program, which I've already talked about, but a set of points that then levels you up to go from an ordinary plebeian individual on a plane to a premier flyer, to a premier executive flyer, to a global services customer, the top tier on United Airlines, is about leveling up in a game, only the game is called the Frequent Flyer Program. Weight Watchers groups. One of the reasons that Weight Watchers is successful in getting people to lose weight is that it puts people together in a team. You're sharing information with other people as opposed to just doing it on your own. The free coffee after 10 purchases at any local retailer, well, that's a reward. You get various things. There's also things like completion mechanics there. But ultimately, it's about rewarding people for their practices. And another example, the American Express card. Here we have the levels, but here I want to point out things like the Platinum card is a representation. It says, hey, I am important. I've reached this point by virtue of my spending in the program, and that Platinum card itself in gamification we call a badge. So none of these are foreign concepts when you think about them. Gamification is just about using them and applying them in a systematic way, given all of the power that we have with these digital technologies.